Trump filled more big positions today. The names are all familiar, if the positions will seem a little odd. The latest is Fox firebrand Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. This is going to stir controversy, as will Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to head the Department of Government Efficiency, which doesn't exist yet. And we're going to discuss why there is controversy and if it's really warranted. We also know Governor Noem for Homeland Security, Governor Huckabee as ambassador to Israel, former DNI Ratcliffe for CIA. And I think people are already, to be honest, playing the game somewhat by obsessing on who is being picked. Yes, Hegseth is not known for his Pentagon or high strategy work in the Army. And yes, Governor Noem is the one who shot her dog. And some of the other names are fringe players. But look, elections have consequences. And Trump said he would not pick a mixed team. He wants loyalists, and that's what he is picking. But also remember, it's not unusual for people to be new to the agency that they're going to run. And these people will not be choosing the policies. And that's what really matters. Here's my point. Being reminded of how Senator Rubio bashed Trump when he ran against him, yeah, it's real. Yeah, he went back on his own word out of opportunity. Welcome to politics. And it doesn't help inform how he will be as a Secretary of State. I believe we got to disrupt those among the establishment and the media that want us constantly in division mode. The election is over. Now is the time for action on the problems that we've all been bathed in for months and accountability for the same. That's my focus at NewsNation. A ready resource for critical thinking independence. All of you who want to hear all sides of an argument, not just what you came in believing. And now is the time. Independence spiked in this election. We've never seen turnout like this. More of you voted as independents than Democrats, and you tied Republicans. Do you know how remarkable that is in such a duopoly as our two-party system is? Harris won independents, but it was very close. And it's testament to the lack of groupthink that defines our audience here at NewsNation. For example, tonight, I'm looking at whether the Democrats really paid for celebrity endorsements. I have an inside source from the party talking about that. I'm then going to test what she says with a Democratic leader in the House. Then I'm going to get Bill O'Reilly on to talk about, big-time conservative, to talk about where we're headed, what these picks mean. And then the ultimate independent, Andrew Yang, in the mix about what he does and does not like so far. All sides, all tested, all for your consideration. That's NewsNation. Now, here's my favorite story of the night. I'm back on the trail of Peanut the squirrel. And I'll tell you why. If he didn't test positive for rabies, why'd they kill him? People are calling this murder. Yeah, I know it's weird because it's a squirrel, but it's not that weird. Not if you're Mark Longo, his owner. Not if you're his wife. Not if you're all the people who followed them on Instagram and care about animals. So I invited Longo back to see if this is true. And why won't anybody from the agencies involved come on to defend their situation? Instead, they send us these weird, cryptic side messages from other sources going after Longo's personal life. So that's what I'm doing tonight. You like it? Good. Please download the app so you can get NewsNation anywhere, anytime. And I'll be putting out phone-friendly content more and more on what deserves your attention. So let's start at the top. What do we think of Trump's intentions from his first moves? Our first guest, the one and only Bill O'Reilly. How are you, sir?
The big-time conservative Bill O'Reilly. Is that correct? Is that how you describe me in your monologue?
Are you a conservative?
It's a little misleading. I'm not. I'm a traditional independent. I just said, no, whatever. I'm a traditional independent.
Okay. I've heard you say you're a conservative before. I've heard you say that, but go ahead.
You haven't.
Of these picks, oh yes, I have, but that's okay.
Yes.
Of these picks, what do you believe is remarkable of the picks?
I don't think anything's remarkable. I understand the picks, but let me put it into perspective, unlike 95% of television pundits. So the two most powerful people in the country beside President Trump are Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, and Stephen Miller, who is the Deputy Chief of Policy. Now, I've never even heard of that before, but what Miller is going to be assigned to do is watch all of the other cabinet people to make sure they do what Donald Trump wants. So Miller becomes the confidant to the President of the United States. I know Miller pretty well. Now, you talk about a big-time conservative, that would be Stephen Miller, not Bill O'Reilly. And I first ran across Miller in the Duke lacrosse case, where he defended the lacrosse players who were unmercifully brutalized by the American press, and then that whole story fell apart. Miller was in the middle of that as a very young man. And he is a guy I can get on the phone, and he'll tell me the truth about anything I ask him, and that's over the years. Now this man, Stephen Miller, is extremely powerful, and everybody in Trump's cabinet will know that. Susie Wiles is the whisperer, okay? So when Trump goes over the line, Susie will try to pull him back. Very powerful woman. I don't know her, but I know how she operates, and she's very level-headed, in my opinion. What else you want to know tonight from the big-time conservative?
She hasn't gotten enough. I don't know why you're denying that, but that's okay. She is not getting enough positive attention for being the first woman ever picked to be chief of staff. If it were a Democrat who had done that, it would have been celebrated in the media, but because it's Trump, they don't. No, it matters. It matters that it's the first woman who's doing it. When they're over half the population, it's a good move.
All right, Jill Biden was the first one. She ran a White House for the last 8 months. I don't like the gender stuff. I mean, I just want people who love their country, want to do good for the American people, and invoke policies that are positive. I don't know, again, Ms. Wiles, I can't evaluate her other than I know people within the campaign, and they say she is not some kind of ideological loon. She's very practical.
Right. I mean, look, my point is that diversity of thought, diversity of perspective is always helpful. I'm not talking about just checking a box. I'm saying that by all accounts, she was fundamental to his success, and her appointment would be celebrated if it wasn't by Trump. Now, Miller, you didn't express any concerns about him. This guy is a constant red flag for us in the media. He was the author of the Muslim travel ban. He has argued a lot of things that seem jingoistic and prejudiced about how he feels about who's coming into the country. Do people have him wrong?
I don't know. You make up your own mind. I know the policy that the Trump administration tried to implement was there were countries on the watch list that had no regulation over terrorists, and they didn't want people from those countries infiltrating into America. That doesn't sound too jingoistic to me. It sounds like a national security play. I wrote a book on this, Killing the Killers. And the Trump administration was very effective in dismantling the Islamic Jihad. Very effective. So if you're going to throw Miller up as some kind of kook, I'm going to say no. You may disagree with the way he goes about it, but he is a fairly sophisticated thinker. And I haven't seen anything that Stephen Miller has done that causes me concern. That being said, everybody should understand what's going to happen now. So there isn't going to be unsupervised immigration any longer. There isn't going to be the reason that that Hegseth was chosen as defense secretary is not for strategy. All right, he's not going to do that. Marco Rubio will do that with Trump and the national security team. Hegseth's going to watch the generals because Trump got so burned by them, and he's so angry that he wants it's a watchdog play with Pete Hegseth. Okay, and he's a very loyal guy to Trump. So you have to understand it's a top-down on Trump. Trump is going to run everything, and he wants eyes and ears in all of these areas reporting back to him. That's how this country is going to be run.
The only pushback I have is that You're right. It wound up being a tailored list of countries, but that wasn't Miller's original intention. It was a Muslim ban originally, and it was open in terms of which countries.
I'd have to
Eventually, they had to compromise on it.
I'd have to see the documentation of that. You may be right, but I haven't seen documentation. If you can find a soundbite where he said that, I know you can't do it instantaneously.
No, it was the original proposal.
On in the week. But go ahead.
The original proposal was open-ended.
Well, that's the proposal that was rolled out.
Right. Right, and then it was modified. But with Hegseth, you're saying this all as if it's all okay. We're not used to hearing that people have assembled a cabinet that is to be basically their spy network on everybody in the agencies, and they're not really running anything. It's all just one guy and his couple of people planning it. This will be unusual, will it not?
Well, not really. A lot of people don't like this governing style, that's for sure. The press is going wild already because they hate Trump. But Trump is going to run this administration the way he wants to. Franklin Delano Roosevelt did the same thing. He had his cadre all over the federal government watching people that might subvert what he wanted done. FDR was a very centralized president. And you didn't have a real aggressive media back then, but that was the Depression years and the World War II years. Roosevelt didn't brook much. You did it his way or you were out. He wouldn't even talk to Harry Truman, his vice president, because he didn't trust Truman. All right, so he isolated Truman totally. All right, that was FDR. So this isn't new. It's been done. Richard Nixon was paranoid, really paranoid. And he had his guys, Ehrlichman and Haldeman, watch every single thing that happened in the federal government, and I think you know that if you studied Watergate. So Trump is going to run it in a fashion that he got burned the first time, and those who burned him are not going to reappear in any way, shape, or form.
On the screen, people are seeing while we speak, tomorrow, Mr. Holman, who's going to be in charge of border policy or executing Trump's policy, is going to be on tomorrow. I'm going to give a big chunk of time to kind of, to not rush it. Let's have a real conversation about why it is, why you want it to be, and how. So that'll be good for the audience to get a feel of a guy who's getting a lot of attention right now. Do you believe that
having
both houses of Congress... Oh, yeah, go ahead. Please.
Yeah, I want to give you a suggested line of questioning for Holman. So the solution in the short term is to have Mexico do what they did in the last year of Trump's first term, to mobilize the army, the Mexican army, on the southern Guatemala and the northern USA border to stop the cartels from bringing all these people in here. Now, I don't know where that is. I know Trump has already called the new Mexican president, who's a socialist and who's afraid of the cartels, doesn't want to go up against them, okay? But that would be a fascinating line to see what Holman knows about that. See how the Trump administration is going to handle those cartels, not only on smuggling people, but smuggling narcotics. I'm sorry to intrude, but I think that'll be a great line of questioning for Holman.
It is absolutely a fundamental need in the conversation, and thank you for highlighting it. If Trump has both houses of Congress, do you believe that immigration will be his first major legislative initiative?
Well, he'll walk and chew gum. So the headlines will be migration. All right, if he gets the Mexico deal, which I think he will, because he's basically told the Mexican president, you don't cooperate with us, we're going to strangle your economy. We're already pumping oil like crazy when I get in. We're going to put you out of business. And so the president's got to. She's got to cooperate with him. So that'll be a headline. But at the same time, he has got to get oil out of the ground fast for a number of reasons. And I don't know how fast you can do it. So he's got to open up Anwar. He's got to get the Keystone Pipeline up and running. He's got to knock out all the Biden regulations that were put in because of global warming, which he will. But I don't know how quickly he can get that done, because that will lead to the drop in prices at the grocery store, at the gas pump, and the essentials of life. And therefore, the Trump administration would be able to say by June, look what we did. And that's what Trump wants now. He wants to parade achievements out, all right, so the American people like him. He's in it for glory. He's in it for being the best president. That's what he wants in his second term. He don't want to prove himself anymore. And this small ball about going after people he doesn't like, I don't think he's going to do that. He's going to waste his time doing that. He might have somebody else, annoy them, but it's not going to be him. He's going to try to get 4 or 5 things done. The Ukraine war is going to be big, and he's going to get that ceasefire with Putin. I think that deal's already been done, by the way. He'll get it, and then he'll get a big headline, and that's what he wants. So when you tune on CNN and all these other things, and you see the small ball, oh, he's doing this, he's doing that, you're wasting your time watching that. Keep your eye on the big ones, because that's where he's going.
I agree with that analysis 100%, although that imitation is usually how you describe me. But I'll allow you to share it with just your impression of other networks in general.
Okay. I want everybody to read Confronting.
Yes.
Sure. I want everybody to read Confronting the Presidents. And here is the most important thing. In my store, I have a store, okay? And we keep prices artificially low. We have not woke gear. It is the fastest selling stuff we have ever had, Cuomo. And I'm going to send you some not woke gear, particularly the mug that I want you to put on your little table. And when you're thirsty, okay, but you've got to lift it so people see not woke. That's where you want to be identified. Cuomo is not woke. He's an independent. All right? Just like I'm the big bad conservative. Cuomo is the not woke independent.
Big yes, bad no. Bill O'Reilly, thank you very much. Let's not focus on who's woke. Let's focus on who's broke. I'll see you next time. 4 minutes and 5 seconds. Coming up, how did the Harris campaign... All right, so you got two big things we got to look at. Did they really raise and use that much money so that they wound up in debt? If so, how was it stolen? And the real one, did they really pay this guy, Eminem, over $1 million to endorse? Oprah paid to endorse? I want to bring on someone who lived it, and then I want to bring on a very important member of the Democratic Party, a leader in Congress, for his reaction. Next. All right, the 2024 election, most expensive presidential election in U.S. history, was expected. I'll tell you what wasn't expected. For the Democrats to raise a record amount of money and yet still wind up upside down with vendors and staffers worried about not getting paid. And so much money went out in such a short amount of time that it makes you wonder, did somebody steal it? I mean, how do you spend this much in ways that we're not even really sure about? And then one of the ways we're hearing about now is something I've never heard. I've been in this business my whole life. I've never heard of celebrities getting outwardly paid to endorse, to perform maybe, but to endorse? Oprah? Now, is there evidence to support the claim? Well, look, the facts alone, I don't know about Oprah. I don't know if it was a production company. I don't even know if it happened, but I know it's a question. And what we know they spent the money on is weird enough. $15 million on event production that went toward her celebrity concerts in swing states. Like a set for a podcast she went on. She didn't win a single swing state, so you got to think about how they were using their money. And although Oprah says she wasn't paid a cent by Harris, the campaign did pay her company $1 million to produce Oprah's star-studded town hall. Well, isn't that paying? And the Harris team reportedly spent 6 figures to build that set I told you about on that Call Her Daddy podcast, you know, which I got her hundreds of thousands of views, but I mean, I don't know that it was cost effective. And then you got Eminem, then you got Beyonce. So let's talk to somebody who lived it, okay? And is speaking out now with her own concerns. Lindy Lee joining us now. Lindy, thank you very much for taking the opportunity.
I'm a huge fan of yours. I've watched you for like a decade, so thank you so much for having me.
Well, it is good to be here, and let's start just with you for a second with this question. What are you doing talking about what happened in the campaign and absolutely putting a target on your head, let alone your back? Why would you do this?
If we don't confront reality, if we don't address these very serious issues, we're going to keep losing. And I really like what you've said, earlier in the segment. If we don't recognize that America is shifting rightward, we are going to keep losing. If we don't have a financial accountability and some sort of very serious accounting of how exactly we spent $1 billion in 2 to 3 months, how are donors and even everyday Americans who gave their $10 and $25 ever going to trust the Democratic Party again? We need a serious postmortem to show that we're learning the lessons, that we are exposing everything that went wrong, and that we are going to do better in the future. We can't just throw everything under the rug and assume that daddy's going to fill the piggy bank again.
What do you think of these allegations of what Oprah, I mean, either they paid the production company or they didn't. I've never heard of people getting paid for endorsements. Paid to perform, maybe, but usually they give it. But do you believe it?
It's not a matter of believing. It's literally in the report. And she can deny it however much she wants to, but it says Harper Productions on the FEC report. I really don't know how you get around that. It's her company, and she may not have gotten paid personally as a person, but it paid her company. So I think this is a matter of semantics. She got paid. And it's just, if my donors had known beforehand that the money would be dispersed this way, I do not think they would have given. It's a sacred trust. These people, a lot of my donors have worked hard all their lives. And again, these are everyday Americans around the country. I didn't just deal with big donors. I also fundraised from grassroots donors who gave $25, as I mentioned. I did something called Geeks and Nerds for Harris. People are giving like $10 to $15. These are people, some people are living paycheck to paycheck. So it's a sacred trust for them to give money to a campaign. It is our utmost responsibility to use that money in a responsible manner and to not treat it as OPM, which is other people's money. If we can't handle campaign money the right way, how can taxpayers, how can Americans possibly trust us that we would handle taxpayer money the right way?
Did you think you were going to lose?
This is a very hard question. Very hard. So we were told 100% that we were going to win up until I think 9 to 10 p.m. on election night, which is stunning. I had a DNC official telling me on the night of that we were going to win ruby red Iowa. And I was just I just was wondering if he thought I was stupid. He said it in earnest. I also found out that the guy's being pushed out, the same guy who said it to me. Actually, I think the entire DNC leadership is going to change in the next couple of months. There's going to be hell to pay. This is not a 2016 loss. This is a shellacking. This is not a squeaker race. This is a resounding defeat. It pains me to say that. As you said, I put a target on my back. Actually, you'd be surprised that I have dozens of donors blowing up my phone telling me to stay the course. They may not have the guts to say it or the platform, but they want me to keep going because it's their money too. And we let the American people down.
And Lindy, I know that you're worried about staffers and people who need the money, unlike the celebrities who haven't been paid yet. So here's what I can do. Whatever happens next, you have a platform here to discuss it, okay? Whatever comes out about you or you believe that isn't true or whatever it is, you've got a platform here to discuss it. You just give me a call and you got it, okay?
Oh my gosh, that's so kind. That's so kind. Thank you for saying that. I'm also not worried about me because I'm someone who's never even smoked marijuana. I don't even drink alcohol. So I live my life in such a rigid manner. I'm a workhorse, so I'm not afraid of what people could possibly say. It wouldn't be true. So come at me, everything that I've said, every single hour, it seems like what I've been saying has been substantiated. Just in the past couple of hours, we saw that the Harris campaign gave Al Sharpton his company $500,000. And a few moments later, he was endorsing her resoundingly. And this is not good optics. It's journalistic malpractice. Perception is reality in this industry. And
I can't disagree with anything you're saying, except the no drinking and marijuana thing. But hey, you make your own choices. You're always welcome here to discuss what happens next, okay?
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate that.
Lindy, thank you for the candor, okay? Very unusual, very welcome. Now, let's get reaction. Another fair broker. Have him on the show as much as I can. Democratic member of Congress from California, leader in the Democratic Party, Ro Khanna. Raised a lot of money because a lot of people trust him. What do you make of what you're hearing from Lindy Lee and what we don't need Lindy for, which is you guys gave a lot of money to people who usually do stuff for free?
Well, look, it was wrong. I mean, first of all, the idea that having Beyonce and Katy Perry do concerts was going to convince people who are struggling to buy a house or their kids getting a car was just absurd. I mean, I don't know why we didn't have folks like Chauncey, who was in the New York Times, who was laid off at a factory because Master Lock goes to Mexico. Why aren't we surrounding ourselves with 30, 40 people like that in rallies? So it was just a total miscalculation. And I do think there has to be an explanation where the money went. I mean, the donors are asking me about that every day.
You do a good job of balancing woke and broke, as I'm calling it now, that you got to care about the economics that are motivating people's perceptions. And you can still protect minorities and care about how we treat each other in our cultural mores. How did you guys get the balance wrong? And do you believe that people understand that in your party?
Chris, I think the balance that we got wrong was that we were judgmental and would cancel or shame people who disagreed with us. So, for example, I went on Megyn Kelly's show. I was not expecting to have a half-hour conversation on trans rights. It turned out that was the conversation. I didn't say anything on that show about my position that I would say differently in my constituency. But I had a reasonable conversation. I said, look, we got to treat people with inclusion. Those are my values, but I understand there's an issue of safety. I understand there's an issue of fairness. Let's have a civil conversation, see where we agree, see where we disagree. I may be 30-70 on that issue, but what I don't do is demonize people who are coming from a different perspective. And I think in the Democrats, you got to hold on to your convictions. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to take the majoritarian position on everything. People won't trust it. Hold on to your convictions, but be reasonable, thoughtful, not cancel people, and then lead on the economics. And I think that's the winning formula for the party.
Ro Khanna, the more your party can get you out there making the case for them, the better they will be. And you are always welcome to be here. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, Chris.
All right, we'll talk about what matters to the American people. I'll invite you early and often. Ro Khanna, California. Can't just judge people by party, okay? They're not all the same. 4 minutes and 30 seconds up next. So, independents. Bravo, brava to all of you. You voted more as independents than we've ever seen in an election like this. You mattered. I want to bring in Andrew Yang. I mean, come on, let's give him his props. He's OG independent, okay? He wanted to do more for Harris. They did to him what Ro Khanna was just talking about. What happened to him? What he believes happens next for all of us. Next. Democrats won independence, but it was tight. And is that their fault? And what does it mean about what we're going to see going forward? Co-chair of the Forward Party, Andrew Yang. Let's bring him in right now. It's great to have you.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So let's look back and then let's look forward. It wasn't that you were anti-helping. You're saying that because of what Ro Khanna was just saying, which is the party has a little bit of a punitive aspect to it, you got boxed out. Why?
You need look no further than our friend Dean Phillips, who made the case that there should have been a competitive primary, and they continued to malign and ostracize him even after he was proven right. If you look at the DNC speaking schedule, Dean's a sitting member of Congress, but they decided, no, we're going to have you sit this one out to punish you, even though, again, he was making the right case. In my case, because I backed Dean Phillips, I was apparently put on a no-go list for the Harris campaign because I'd apparently crossed a line through my criticism of Joe Biden during that time when I was calling for him to pass the torch. I was hoping there'd be a primary. I thought the elevation of Kamala didn't put her in the strongest position.
Independents came out like we haven't seen before. Now, there's probably something to the theory that a lot of them were Democrats who left. because they wound up outvoting Democrats by identity and equaling Republicans. Harris won it in a slim way. Is this a watershed moment for our fellow independents?
Well, what's fun, Chris, is the Forward Party website traffic shot up. New registrations in states around the country shot up because people are realizing that politics as usual is not working, that America needs a sane third party. And that's why they're coming to the Forward Party in droves over this last number of days, which, I did not vote for Donald Trump. I'm someone who's disheartened by his victory. But I will say it's been a surge for us because independents want a home. And there are a lot of people who are unhappy with what happened last week.
Elections have consequences. We're seeing them play out in his picks. He's doing what he said, which is I'm picking loyalists. I'm not going to mix up the team. I want my people. Bill O'Reilly says he wants basically, he doesn't put it this way, but I see it as a spy network in all of the agencies. What do you make of the choices so far, and what do you think it suggests about where we're headed?
I agree with you, Chris. He's going to do what he said he was going to do. And for the folks that thought, oh, he's just bluster, these picks indicate that they were very, very serious about the agenda that they ran on. And we can expect to see it implemented in ways big and small in the days ahead. I was joking with a friend. I said, this might be the best looking cabinet I've ever seen, but in that it seems like they're kind of chosen for their being telegenic. But I have to say, I'm not sure how that bodes in terms of how the government's going to perform.
Well, I think you're relying a little heavily on Noam and Hegseth there, but we'll leave that to another day. I think that they're really carrying the load there in the looks department, but that's okay. We'll see how they perform. Let me ask you one last thing for now. Do you believe the Democrats should get ahead of where we are headed and join Republicans on a major honking national security bill that will envelop immigration, the border, the policies that go with naturalization, as well as what they want to do on the fuel side? Do you think Democrats should join them and wind up taking credit for what gets done along with Republicans?
You saw that kind of move on the border bill that Trump scuttled for political reasons pretty clearly. Democrats sense that the populace has moved in a particular direction. I think you are going to see some Democrats break ranks and join with them because they want to go to their constituents and say, look, we hear you. We're evolving and we're willing to work to solve problems. That might be tough for some because I'm sure there are going to be elements of some of these Republican plans that some Democrats are not going to be able to agree with.
The issue will beat them, though, and it will matter in the midterms. I think Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries should marshal the ranks and say, let's get in there and get as much of our stuff as we can in this bill so that they don't take complete ownership of it, because they could just run on that one issue in the midterms. Andrew, let's keep the conversation going. You are always welcome here. Your insight is invaluable. Love you. Good to see you.
Thanks, Chris. Go Independents.
Absolutely. It's the only hope is the independent critical thinker. That's our only hope, and it's a good one. 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Now, they come in and they take Peanut. Why? Because Mark Longo didn't have the right paperwork. Okay, but why'd they have to keep Peanut? Oh, well, he may have had rabies. Did he have rabies? And if he didn't, why did they kill him? If the authorities don't want people to think this was vindictive, why don't they come out and explain what seems so vindictive? Mark Longo says, you don't know the half. And I'm going to ask him about what people are saying about him. Next.
I just want to say thank you to all of you. Peanut was the best thing that ever happened to us. And we got confirmation that they put him down. Thank you all.
They didn't even tell him, by the way. He had to find out from somebody else. That's Mark Longo with the squirrel. Became famous on Instagram. Not unusual, but what was done to this animal was. And the question is, was the squirrel the victim of premeditated murder? Now, you can laugh, but listen to the fact pattern, okay? There's new information that this squirrel was taken from a farm in upstate New York. We know that, right? From the owner who rescued him. We know that, right? But it wasn't, in fact, decapitated, which is how they used to test for rabies. It wasn't decapitated because it had bitten an agent, which, by the way, isn't how it works. If you bite a law enforcement person, or they don't automatically kill the animal, okay? So what did happen? Mark Longo, owner of Peanuts Rescue Farm, who came on our show right after this, joins us again now. Mark.
Chris, thank you so much for having me again. It's an honor.
Has anything happened with respect to the farm since we spoke? Is there anything more going on yet?
No, sir. Just radio silence from the DEC, the government. They officially made a statement today that contradicts everything that they were saying in the beginning. You know, you get the DEC to make a statement saying that they were going to kill him before they even raided my house.
So the idea of it being premeditated, what do you make of that? Look, I have checked this. I told you before. We all used to believe that you had to kill animals to test for rabies. There's a lot of technology and advances that have been done that don't make that a must. What's your understanding of what happened here and why?
Honestly, Chris, I'm just disgusted. You made a 10-month investigation for a squirrel and a raccoon. We have murderers and rapists running the streets, and they don't get investigations like this. So you used all of our taxpayers' money and our resources to conjure up a story about a squirrel and a raccoon that was so detrimental to our society that they needed to come and kill them. And then you come out and make a statement that you already were talking about euthanizing them before you even invaded my privacy and raided my home.
Why do you think they did it, and do you know who went to them?
I haven't a clue, and it's still in the dark. I've gotten no answers. I've gotten no response to the government. I have to live in this state, and these people don't even have the stones to give me a call to say, hey, I killed your animals. Also, I cut their heads off. Also, Peanut doesn't have rabies, like we all knew in the beginning of this story. I'm still standing here without rabies from either one of those animals.
Are you considering legal action to make them have to disclose why this was done this way?
Absolutely. We are filing a very big lawsuit. We're going to get answers, and we're going to demand them. Not only did you violate my constitutional rights, but you need to come up with an explanation as to why you murdered these animals. You have alligators that are taken from New York State and put in a sanctuary, but you killed my animals? A squirrel bite and an alligator bite are two different things. You could walk away from a squirrel bite, can't really walk away from an alligator bite. And also, considering that you said on the 22nd of October that you were already planning on euthanizing them, and then somehow you got bit through 2 pairs of protective gloves, it's a little fishy, no?
I hear you. What do you want to say to people who are hearing online all kinds of suspicious stuff about you and how you live your life, and that that's what this is really about?
They're just trying to make a story. Again, if my life was so crazy, I wouldn't be living in a small town in upstate New York. I could have found a very beautiful place with a beach and lived on that. My life choices are none of anybody's business, and they have nothing to do. The relevance of what I do in my life has nothing to do with this story. This is government overreach, and it's being shed in the middle of the world. Everybody is seeing this, and they don't have a leg to stand on, so they want to come after me in other ways.
Well, we're here for it. Mark Longo, as this develops, we're a call away.
Thanks, Chris. Really, really appreciate it.
All right, best to the family. 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Up next, what do you think of Trump's picks, of where we should be headed, of what happened to Peanut getting beheaded? 844-968-7720. Let's get after it. Oh, there she is, the queen of news. What do you got?
I don't know what that was supposed to mean. But I got Lisa from Columbia, South Carolina.
Hello, Chris.
What's your question?
Good evening. My question is, do you think, in your opinion, I'm doing fine. Do you think, in your opinion, that Donald Trump will take the time to get back at his political opponents? Do you think that's going to be his focus on getting back with his political opponents, getting even with them, retribution?
My gut?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. My gut is no, but maybe that's wishful thinking because I may be on the list. But I think opportunistically and in terms of with his mouth, he will, because he loves to trash talk like nobody else. And this crew that he's assembling in his administration is not exactly, a nod towards moderation. It sounds like he's putting his people in there, and there's not one person on that list except for maybe Susie Wiles who will say boo to him. So we'll see what his focus is, but I don't think it's going to be what the boogeyman that people painted it as in terms of coming after people like me. Next.
Greg, Mr. Positive.
Oh,
Chris.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Positive?
Oh, fantastic, Chris. Hey, because Trump won so decisively, do you think the country's going to be less divided now? Or do you think it's going to be the same, the way it is? And, Chris, please, everybody go for your dreams. Talk to me, Chris.
I love you, Mr. Positive. Thank you for putting the good vibes out there. Look, it's irresponsible of me to say, yeah, I think Trump's going to be different this time. He is who he is. He's not a uniter. Now, I think a lot of it is on us, to be honest, is to stay focused and make an allowance for him that we don't usually make for politicians, which is, I know he said it, but he's not going to do it. And let's just focus on what he's doing. John McCain said that about him many years ago, and he was right then, and it's right now. He's going to say a lot of BS, okay? That's who he is. But let's focus on what he does, and I think that's the chance for bringing people together in terms of let's focus on common concerns. And that's not just about him, especially with it being him. It's as much on us and the thought leaders and people in society. Next.
I don't think we have time for another call, but we can do some shameless self-promotion. We have a lot of good people coming up this week.
Please.
We have, let's see. We have the Borders Are. We have the Borders Are. We are going inside these UFO hearings tomorrow with some of the people that will actually be in the room. We have Adam Carolla. We've got Sarah Palin coming up this week, and a lot more. But those are just a few. Big week. Though.
You and I are going to be, we're going to be rumbling tomorrow, you and me, because I want to give Homan a lot of time. And I wish it were in person, but we'll take what we can get.
I already moved 3 people. They don't know who they are yet. They don't know. But I moved some people to make room for them. No rumbling tomorrow.